Let's get into this video. Let's do it. We got people who refuse to let themselves come to an end. Let's do it.
Refused to die. John Colter. It's 1809, and frontiersman John Colter and his friend John Potts are paddling a canoe up the Jefferson River. The two men are hunting for beaver pelts on this expedition, and they both know that they have just crossed into some very dangerous territory. Just a few years earlier, Colter was part of the legendary Lewis and Clark expedition that mapped the previously unexplored American West. While traveling in what is now Montana, the party had some not-so-friendly encounters with the native Blackfeet Indians, who have lived in this region for generations. These tribes had begun working with British fur companies and now saw the American presence in the area as bad for business. Colter could not help but notice the demand for beaver pelts was skyrocketing, and so, in 1806, 2 months before the official end of the expedition,
They used to real life wear this stuff on top of their head, like, for real. Some people probably still do now, but that is like they didn't skint this animal that lost his life for your warmth, man. I understand. But still, that shit gruesome.
he asked to be honorably discharged, and he chose to stay out in the wilderness to try to strike it rich. But John was soon given a lesson on just how much the local tribes did not appreciate American fur trappers on their turf. In 1808, the Blackfeet had ambushed him and shot an arrow in his leg. Had the Flathead and Crow Indians he was traveling with not chased them away, he would have been dead. Now well aware that the Blackfeet did not want them around, the duo were doing everything they could to avoid them at all costs.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
Colter and Potts continued rowing in silence, hoping that they could pass through unnoticed. But as they turned the corner, a cold shiver ran down their spine as hundreds of Blackfeet warriors began stepping out of the forest and onto the riverbank. The natives don't seem to be very interested in doing business, and they gesture for the men to come to them. Colter knows they don't have a lot of options here, so he nervously brings the canoe to shore. The instant he steps onto land, the Blackfeet strip him naked and take his rifle, knife, and gear. As he watches Colter being stripped bare, Potts begins to imagine the horrific things the Blackfeet have in store for them, and he refuses to get off the canoe. The warriors begin to lose their patience, and one of them shoots an arrow into him for his stubbornness. Potts, now bleeding, panics and grabs his rifle. He fires at one of the warriors, and instantly the Blackfeet return, a storm of arrows that turn.
Finish. Look at my boy. They didn't put them in this boy, man. Then tow him up. I'm talking about top to bottom. He should have just got off the boat. At least then he might have lived a little bit longer. Boy, they tore him up.
His body into a pincushion. Horrified, Colter can do nothing but stand there and watch as Potts is dragged ashore and hacked to pieces.
Oh, man.
He assumes he's next, but instead, the chief unexpectedly points to the open prairie and tells him to run. Colter couldn't believe what was happening. He was being spared. And so he takes off, sprinting butt naked as fast as he could. He gets a few hundred yards away when suddenly, war cries echo out in the distance behind him, and it dawns on him that he had not been set free after all. He was simply given a head start. This was a hunt, and he was their prey.
Dang.
Naked, alone, and now running for his life, Colter sprints.
Ooh, he fell, boy. Imagine being butt naked falling straight on meat. Boy, hell no. That's crazy pain. But imagine, bro, they like, bro, you go ahead, run. You running butt ass naked, stepping on sticks, all type of sharp stuff, ain't got nothing on. Knowing your life is close to ending, you just got to keep going and hope that you can make it. Damn.
Ahead, he knows that about 6 miles away is the Madison River. If he can just make it there, he may have a chance of getting away. Every step drives sharp rocks into his bare feet, and his legs are ripped up by shrubs. But Colter pushes himself harder than he ever has before. His lungs burning, he keeps running until his vision starts to blur and blood begins pouring from his nose from the sheer strain. After traveling what felt like a few miles, he stops to try to catch his breath and turns to see if he had lost the Indians. To his horror, one warrior had caught up and found him and was now just 20 yards away. Exhausted and knowing he can't outrun the man, he quickly turns to fight. The Indian, who is running at a full clip towards Coulter, is startled when the naked white man suddenly whips around and aggressively raises his arms towards him. He stumbles to the ground and breaks his spear. On instinct, Coulter rushes over, grabs the broken spear, and drives it into the warrior, killing him. The frontiersman takes a blanket the young Blackfoot was carrying, and as a group of warriors draws near, he takes off running again. He reaches the river, bleeding from his feet and nose, barely able to stand. He can hear the natives getting closer behind him. His legs are completely dead, and he begins desperately searching for somewhere to hide.
Can you imagine, bro, just being chased, like knowing your end about to come and ain't nothing you can really do, bro. You just gotta keep going and fighting. That's like all you can do. The amount of fear probably that was going through dude at the time going through this gotta be the highest level. You know what I'm saying?
As the voices of the warriors grow louder and louder, Coulter spots a beaver lodge and dives into the icy water. He swims beneath the lodge and finds a small pocket of air just big enough to keep his face above the surface. Alright, the beaver lodge was probably empty, but I thought it was funny. Anyways, when the Blackfeet arrive moments later, there is no sign of the naked white man they had been pursuing. They circle the area for hours, and Coulter does his best to remain perfectly still beneath the lodge as the freezing water numbs his entire body. After what seems like an eternity, night falls, and the sounds of the Blackfeet warriors fade into the distance. In near darkness, Coulter slips back into the river and swims a few miles downstream. He crawls ashore, shaking and half frozen, but he is alive. For the next 11 days, with just the blanket he stole from the warrior, he keeps moving through harsh terrain, surviving on roots and berries. He forces his broken body more than 300 miles through mountains and valleys, until finally he reaches a trading fort.
That's brutal, bro. You getting chased. You get away. Now you could die from the coldness of the water. You butt naked. Keep in mind, he butt naked. He ain't got no clothes on. He's still swimming 3 miles. Swimming 3 miles, bro. You know how far it is to walk 3 miles? To swim 3 miles with the water fighting back at you. And it's cold and you butt naked. I know he was shriveled up like a motherfucker. But anyway, then to have to go through that climb and just keep walking for miles after that, after having bloody feet, toe up, bro. That's that fight or flight, bro. And you're gonna do whatever you can to survive. You're gonna do whatever you can to survive, bro.
On the Little Bighorn. As he stumbles in, he is nearly unrecognizable. He's thin, exhausted, and bleeding everywhere. But, against all odds, he lived to tell the tale. Leonid Rogozov. It's September 1960, and a 26-year-old surgeon, Leonid Rogozov, steps off his ship and onto the frozen continent of Antarctica.
Take 5 minutes to reset your spine.
I can't do that.
Restore your energy.
I ain't got 5 minutes to reset mine right now.
A few months earlier, the Soviet Union had announced its 6th Antarctic expedition and was looking for a doctor willing to spend 2 years at the Novolazarevskaya station, one of the most remote research stations on Earth. Leonid had been studying to become a surgeon, but when he heard the news, he dropped everything and quickly applied to join the expedition. He's chosen and is assigned to join the 13-man research team as its sole doctor. As Leonid excitedly walks to the station, he can't believe how quickly his life has changed. But he is completely unaware that soon he would be fighting for his life with nothing but a scalpel and a mirror. By January 1961, the station is fully functional, and Leonid settles into his role as the only physician for the crew. For the first few months, everything is going according to plan, and luckily,
Okay, see, first off, they already fucked up, right? They already fucked up off the rip. For the simple fact that they brought on one doctor and only one doctor. Like, you gotta have backup just in case something happened to the doctor. What if something happened to the doctor? Now they ain't got no doctor. That's the first thing. Second thing, it's cold in the motherfucker out there, and they on the expedition. It's cold as fuck, and you got one doctor. Probably no hospital for miles. Come on, man, you gotta. They weren't thinking back then. They were just doing shit. They were just doing shit, bro.
Researchers seem pretty good at keeping themselves healthy in these extreme conditions. But on the morning of April 29th, Leonid wakes up and something is not right. He feels weak and nauseous. By midday, he's running a fever and a sharp stabbing pain has moved to his lower right abdomen. Leonid knows that this could be very bad. These are all hallmarks of appendicitis, something that can be life-threatening if not treated immediately. So, he starts taking antibiotics and presses ice against his abdomen. He's hoping the infection is minor and this will be all it takes to clear it up. But by the morning of April 30th, the pain is so bad he can barely move. His fever keeps climbing and he begins to vomit uncontrollably. The antibiotics were not enough. This infection had progressed to the point where the outlook was now very grim. His appendix could rupture, and if it did, he would only survive hours to days without proper treatment. The nearest Soviet research station with another doctor is over 1,000 miles away. And to make things even worse...
See, I told y'all no hospital for miles, bro. They over 1,000 miles away, bro. It ain't no saving them once he gone. They ain't got nobody. And even if he get back to health, he gonna take a long time to recover. What if somebody get messed up then? He can't do much for him. And then if they need it, like they say, the doctor's 1,000 miles away. You should have brought two.
A severe blizzard had rolled in, making it impossible for any planes to land at Novozorevskaya to rescue him. The researchers at the station watch helplessly as their doctor's condition continues to worsen. There's nothing they can do, and they realize they may have to helplessly watch him die. Leonid stares at the ceiling of his small room, his mind running through all of his options. In the end, he decides surgery is the only thing that can save his life, and he is the only person who can do it. He recruits 3 of his colleagues to help him as assistants, and he begins prepping himself for surgery. He orders one of the researchers to hold a mirror near his abdomen so he can see what he's doing during the surgery. He places another researcher near his tools so he can call for them as needed, and he gives the third man a shot of adrenaline and instructs the researcher to stand by and use it on him if he passes out. At 2 a.m. on May 1st, Leonid nods to his assistants, adjusts himself into a half-sitting position, and injects himself with a local anesthetic. Looking at the mirror, he picks up a scalpel and makes a 4-inch cut on his right side. He continues to cut through layers of muscle and tissue, but he struggles using the mirror to see and eventually begins working through touch alone. He can feel the warmth of his blood seeping out over his hands as he searches for his appendix. As he's working blindly in the hole he had cut into himself, he accidentally cuts his large intestine. Leonid quickly calls for sutures, and he's forced to sew it back together before he can continue to his appendix. 40 minutes have now passed, and his vision
Bro, can you imagine how dang on painful this is to do this to yourself and be awake for surgery at the same time? That anesthetic ain't do that much for him, bro. That anesthetic ain't do not nearly enough for him that it could have did if he was not doing it himself. This is ridiculousness, bro. He digging in his skin. He literally got his fingers all in his shit trying to get his stuff together to save his own life. Could you imagine?
Begins to blur. His head starts to spin and he becomes nauseous. He begins to take short 30-second breaks every 4 minutes to regain his focus, using all of his concentration to not black out mid-surgery. After almost an hour of cutting and feeling around his abdomen, Leonid finally locates his appendix. But at that exact moment, he feels his heart rate slow, and his hands begin to lose sensation. He battles back through the brink of blacking out, grips his scalpel, and quickly removes his appendix. As he inspects it, he sees a dark stain at its base, and deduces that if it was not removed, it would have burst within a day. He fights through the vertigo and nausea and sews himself back together. Nearly 2 hours after he had made the initial cut into himself, the surgery was completed, and Leonid, exhausted both mentally and physically, collapses on the table. Over the next few days, he continues to suffer from a high fever, and his colleagues worry that their doctor still won't make it. But on day 5, his fever finally breaks, and in 2 weeks, Leonid is back on his feet performing his regular duties.
That's a soldier, boy. That's a soldier, boy. He cut himself open. 2 hours, nigga. He did surgery on himself for 2 hours. And to say he did it himself in 2 hours, that was low-key quick. 2 hours, got that bit out of him. Took it out. And then 2 weeks, he back doing surgeries on niggas, man. This ain't no ordinary doctor, bruh. This here is somebody that's different that you ain't never seen before. This is what you ain't understanding what I'm saying. He a fucking boss. He handle business.
On yourself and then continuing to do your job as if nothing had happened is, not gonna lie, kind of impressive. And I guess even the Soviet government thought so too, as Leonid was later awarded the Order of the Red Banner of Labor for his bravery and service to the Soviet state. Julian Kopka.
He do it, man.
It's December 24th, 1971, and 17-year-old Julian Kopka is sitting next to her mother as their plane takes off into the sky.
Love Roblox?
I don't play
Earn
no goddamn
Roblox
on
digital
Roblox,
gift cards
brother.
with Microsoft Rewards.
Come on, man.
A day earlier, Julianne had graduated
We
from
watching
high school in
videos right
Lima,
now.
and now she's finally going back home to spend Christmas with her dad. Her parents were world-renowned zoologists who were living at a research station they'd established deep in the Amazon rainforest. The original plan was for Julianne to return to the research station a few days earlier, but wanting to participate in her graduation ceremony, she convinced her mother to stay with her and fly back on Christmas Eve instead. But being Christmas, all the flights out of Lima were booked solid, and the only airline with available seats was LANSA, an airline with a poor reputation for safety. Julianne's father urged his wife not to book with LANSA, but thinking this was a short 1-hour flight, Julianne's mom booked the tickets, and they were now aboard LANSA Flight 508, heading home. Their plane climbs to cruising altitude, and everything seems fine. But roughly 30 minutes after takeoff, Julianne looks out the window and sees dark clouds and flashes of lightning surrounding them. The pilot had chosen to fly directly into a thunderstorm, and soon the entire aircraft began shaking violently. The aircraft is tossed in the storm, and luggage is rattled out of the overhead bins. Passengers begin to scream with every bump as the plane moves more and more erratically. Julianne holds her mother's hand tightly, but both are unable to speak out of fear. Suddenly, the panic in the cabin is drowned out by a massive bang from outside. When Julianne looks back out the window again, she sees that the plane's right wing is on fire.
Bro, if I was on a plane and this happened to me, I don't even know how we react. I'd probably try to take myself out because I know it's going to eventually come to an end. You know what I'm saying? I'd probably try to take myself out, bro. I ain't never even been on a plane, bro. I'm terrified of planes, bro. Because I'm scared of heights, bro. And to be that high off the ground and just flying through the air, how we staying up? I know I get the technology behind staying up there that long, but my mind's still going to be like, nah, bro, this don't feel right. We shouldn't be up here. We shouldn't be doing this right now. You know what I'm saying? And then just my luck, I get on that mug and that mug go down. You know what I'm saying? Like, I be freaked out, bro. I had to take I'm gonna have to take a Benadryl or something so I can go to sleep, bro. So I be sleep or something, man. I couldn't do it, bro. I'd be freaking out, bro.
Fire. Terrified, she looks to her mom, who looks back at her and calmly says, "That is the end. It's all over." The plane's engines scream louder and louder as it drops into a nosedive, and within seconds, it begins to tear itself apart mid-air. Passengers are flown into the open sky, and when Julianne opens her eyes, the cabin is gone. Wind is ripping past her as she falls towards the rainforest below, still strapped into her bench seat. As the tree line accelerates towards her, she passes out. When she opens her eyes, it's the next morning. She was unconscious while it happened, but the rainforest canopy and the airplane seats she was strapped into had broken her fall, just enough to keep her from dying on impact. Somehow, she is still alive. She immediately calls out for her mother, but nobody answers.
Her mama
As she tries to stand, her head begins to spin from a brutal concussion. She stumbles through the wreckage, desperately searching for other passengers, but she is completely alone. As she checks herself, she realizes her collarbone is broken. She also has a deep gash along her right arm, a badly wounded knee, and an injured eye. To make matters worse, she's lost her glasses, and being short-sighted meant she was now nearly blind to the dangers lurking around her in the rainforest. But there was one thing that Julianne had that perhaps no one else who may have survived the crash had. During the 18 months she lived with her parents in the Amazon before high school, she learned the basics of how to survive in the jungle. She remembered that the best chance of survival in a situation like this was to find a river, because if she followed it long enough, it would eventually lead her to people. As she moves through the scattered wreckage, she finds a bag of sweets. With that as her only food, Julianne pushes forward through the thick jungle. For days, she hobbled through the rainforest alone, the calls of the animals around her providing an eerie soundtrack to her hike of desperation. At night, the cold winds leave her shivering as she curls up in a bush to try to sleep. As the days pass, the wound on her arm becomes infected, and botfly maggots start eating into her.
Oh, man, hell no. Boy, I cut my arm off. I'ma have to, boy. I hate maggots, boy. Them mother's all on your body. You walking, they on your body, they eating you, boy. I'm cutting my arm off. I can't do it, boy. No. And hell no. I would have started a fire. Something, I would have burnt them mother's. Something was gonna happen. Something had to have give. I fell out of plane, hit the ground, live, break my collarbone, tear my knee up, my eye black and swole. Any folk eat me? No, sir. Hell no, bro. Hell no. That shit different, boy. Hell no.
Her open flesh. On the fourth day, she finds a stream and begins to follow it. As she turns the corner, she sees something that sends shivers down her spine. In front of her are 3 dead passengers from her flight, all still strapped to their seats with their heads buried into the ground.
Damn.
It's the first time Julianne had ever seen a dead body, and she is initially frozen in fear. She works up the courage to approach the bodies to check the woman, dreading the idea that this could be her mom, but finds that the corpse's toenails are painted, something her mother never did. Staring at the passengers, the last bits of hope she was holding onto begin to slip away. She gathers herself and forces onward. The sound.
See, it's not. You gotta check them and make sure they ain't got no good stuff on them, because you gotta have stuff to survive. They could have had a lighter in their pocket. Who knows? You on the plane, yeah, but at the same time, some folks be sneaking stuff on there, bro. They might have had anything. If they got suitcases, bags in it, you gotta go through that. You gotta get clothes. You gotta get. They might have medicine, anything.
The sound of moving water grows louder, and the creek suddenly opens into a wide river. She knows that if she continues to walk along the river, she could maybe find her way out. But after 10 days of stumbling through the forest, she is reaching her limit. Her bag of sweets ran out days ago, and now she was so weak she could barely stand. Just as she is about to give up, she spots a small boat tied to the riverbank. Using the last of her energy, she makes her way to the boat. She notices a narrow path leading into the trees, and it takes her to a small hut. She's saved! But when she gets there, no one is there. By now, the maggots in her arm were nearly 1 inch long. She remembered something her father did for one of their pets in the past, and she finds a can of gasoline in the hut. She sucks the gas out of the can and spits it onto her wound. The pain is excruciating as the maggots try to burrow deeper into the wound to escape the fuel, but she is able to pluck 30 of them.
That's so goddamn, ooh, that's filthy. That's nasty, boy. Just all on my body, man. I be in that bit like this. I get the fuck off me, boy. I'm gonna have to snatch him off. At that point, it ain't much you can do. You got maggots in your skin, brother. You gotta go and rip them things out of there. It ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You just gotta do what you gotta do. It is what it is. Ain't no way. I'm not going through that. No.
I'm out of her arm. Exhausted, Julianne falls to the ground inside the hut and falls asleep. The next morning, she wakes to the sound of voices and runs outside. When the men see Julianne, they are terrified and initially think she's a half-dolphin water goddess. But speaking in Spanish, she explains to them what happened. She was on the flight that crashed, and she is all alone. They treat her wounds, feed her, and the next day bring her back to civilization. Julianne is soon reunited with her father and learns that her mother is still missing. Officials continue to search for her mother, but her body is eventually found in January. She had also survived the plane crash, but was too injured to move and died a few days after the incident in the jungle. Of the 92 people aboard LANSA Flight 508, Julianne was the only survivor, and, in fact, she's still alive today.
Hey, man, shout out Julianne, man. I'm glad you survived that, bro. That's some gruesome stuff right there. You a fighter. Everybody in here a fighter, man. I ain't gonna lie, man. I enjoyed this video. If y'all enjoyed this video too, leave me a like, comment, and subscribe. And I'm gonna catch y'all in the next video, bro. We out this thing. Bye, man.